I'm going to come right out and say it. When people talk about Friday the 13th, this is the one they usually think about. It has all the staples of the franchise. Jason, hockey mask and all, in his prime, just mutilating kids like it's nobody's business. Tom Savini came back for the gore effects, which really helps it stand out. I don't know what it is about the MPAA, but whenever Savini's involved, it seems like they take more of a back seat. The cast is also pretty strong, when considering what kind of movie this is. It was almost like they forgot they were making an exploitation film, and if it didn't have Jason going on a bloody rampage through Crystal Lake, it would have probably made for a really tame date movie. The standout performers are, of course, Corey Feldman and Crispin Glover. Glover is probably remembered mostly for his glorious death scene, but also for some hilarious dance moves. Feldman plays Tommy Jarvis, the first actual kid, aside from Jason himself, to appear as a lead in one of these films. Tommy is one of the most relatable characters. He isn't going around swearing like a sailor, but he's always wandering onto something that he's not supposed to see, and reacts accordingly.
Some pack of patooties, huh?
I attribute my earliest exposure to nudity to the Friday the 13th film, so seeing how he reacts to the same things brings me back to my childhood. Speaking of actors, stuntman Ted White steps behind the hockey mask for this one. White had doubled for actors as famous as John Wayne, so he definitely had the chops to take on the iconic slasher villain. This is the first film where we actually see Jason full-on sprint after his victims, and I've gotta say, if someone was chasing me at full sprint, I think I'd shit my pants. I know there's a lot of debate amongst fans whether or not Jason should run, and I honestly think it depends on the situation. If he's just going to slowly lumber from one victim to the next, like in later films where he starts to teleport conveniently around the woods, then it just starts to become cheap. But usually when he runs here, it's when he's got his prey trapped in a corner. Jason also has more stamina in this film. He ran in the last two movies, but he was always lumbering around as if he had some handicap that was preventing him from moving fast. Here he moves with a purpose, and he doesn't mess around when it comes to his kills either. He genuinely seems pissed off. This is the get off my lawn Jason, and he's not putting up with any quick cutaways or off-screen deaths. Every death sequence has some kind of flourish, whether it be the hitchhiker who dies while squeezing a banana, or the guy in the shower whose skull gets turned into an ashtray. If you came to this film for the gore, it delivers in spades. It's also one of the films that delivers on the nudity. There's a misconception about these films concerning the boatloads of nudity. With the exception of Part 6, every film in the series has a gratuitous boob shot, but usually it's quick and there's only maybe one scene. This is one of the sequels that exceeds its boob quota. I'm not really sure how serious the studio was when they gave it the title, The Final Chapter. It's not even the only film in the series to use final in its name. Siskel and Ebert seemed to catch on right when the film came out in 1984.
This isn't the final chapter, that's just an advertising gimmick. The ending clearly sets up a sequel, and what I want to know is, I wonder if they're going to be heartless and cynical enough to make the sequel, because why not?
And given how quickly the next film was released, it more than likely was a marketing gimmick to get people in the theaters. Given how many sequels are in this franchise, it's amazing to think of a time when only 4 of these movies existed. Sometimes when you look at the lack of continuity between films, the only option you really have is to put this film into context when it originally came out in 1984. No one probably predicted that people would still be talking about this series 40 years down the road. The final chapter isn't anything unique or special. It doesn't really move the plot forward. It doesn't introduce anything we haven't seen before. It just takes what we loved about the last 3 movies and does it better than any of them.